At that first Christian Pentecost, God's Spirit infused a tiny group of Jesus followers with new life and energy. This happened unexpectedly. This happened in the middle of a celebration that had nothing to do with Jesus, at least at first glance. The Jewish festival of Pentecost, called Shavuot in Hebrew, is about God's gift of the Torah to the people of Israel. Its common name is Pentecost because it took place 5 weeks after Passover. It was one of the 3 great pilgrimage festivals in Judaism, back when there was still a temple in Jerusalem. At one particular celebration of Shavuot in Jerusalem, the one when God's Spirit poured into the followers of Jesus, the result was disruption. You could even call it chaos. All of a sudden, a bunch of mostly illiterate Galileans and a few Judeans started speaking in languages they could not possibly have learned in their backwater communities. The eventual result was a new way of understanding at least 2 things: what Jesus is all about, and what it means to live as a community centered on the resurrected Christ.
I've been thinking about how the Holy Spirit has a way of shaking things up. The movement of the Holy Spirit can be like an earthquake shaking the ground, opening up crevices, shifting rock. It may not always feel comfortable or even safe. Yet, when it's all over, we might find wonders or treasures in these places that have just opened up. New possibilities can emerge. I'm just starting to serve at Trinity Peace Parish, and I never would have dreamed after I accepted this call that I would start in the middle of a pandemic that would keep us from worshiping together in our church buildings. And of course, it didn't make me feel very comfortable. Yet here I am today working with longstanding and new colleagues, creating worship together for the sake of all 6 congregations, for the folks and for any other folks that are led to worship with us.
As the book of Acts tells us, the Holy Spirit blew in and amongst the followers of Jesus to amaze them and astonish them and perplex them. The Holy Spirit blew in and amongst them to open their ears and to open their eyes and to open their hearts to recognize the power of God at work in their everyday, ordinary lives. The Holy Spirit blew in to shake things up and make way for new possibilities.
What's going on? I imagine that thought was in the minds of, and probably on the tongues of many of the people who were gathered on that day we call Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit rushed in like a wind and fire, and the babble of languages could be heard.
And again, I remind you, all of this happened unexpectedly, in the middle of something else, with no preparations, no planning. Spontaneous creation of community. COVID-19 is not a gift from God. It's a virus infecting nearly 2 million Americans and millions more worldwide, and leading to the deaths of thousands upon thousands. We are in no mood to celebrate this virus and its effect on our communities. But it has at least one thing in common with God's Spirit at the first Christian Pentecost. It entered our lives unexpectedly, and it altered the way we do just about everything, including worshiping the resurrected Jesus.
It's really weird. But often over the last weeks, I get this feeling, this sensation of floating in the air. I just seem to float loose from the earth as though its pull no longer holds me in place. And I wonder what will become of me. And I have that feeling like when you're at the top of the roller coaster and it begins a dive. And after that, I usually get this image of a rope or something that's tethering me back to the earth, and particularly to Taylor, Trumpelow, and Upper Beaver Creek churches that make up my parish. And I think, what is going on? I spoke to Reverend Greg Kaufman from our Senate office shortly after I started my call, and he teased me and congratulated me on being the only pastor in the synod who was beginning a new call during the sheltering at home time. And it's certainly been a beginning like no other I've ever experienced, and I'm not always sure what I should be doing. I suspect that's that feeling of floating off into nothingness, out of control. But that image of tethering brings me comfort. And knowing that even at a distance, I still feel this connection to the congregations. And I suspect this weirdness is all the way of the Holy Spirit happening, sharing a message with me that I continue to be grounded in God and to the churches that I'm serving.
During these past weeks, God has surprised me many times over. Initially, in response to COVID-19, it was all about the scramble to put together online resources so that we could sustain one another. It was Lent. We created a video to continue with our Lenten theme, and lo and behold, way more people tuned into that video than would ever come to the church building for Lenten worship. And people keep tuning in. Long after Lent came to an end, we keep making those midweek videos through YouTube and Facebook, where things get shared from one to another. The Holy Spirit is blowing into the lives of all sorts of people. People who live here and people who live far away. Members of the congregation, members of other congregations, members of no congregation. People who used to come to this building regularly and people who have rarely come or don't even know where the building is. Through our efforts to connect online, the Holy Spirit is moving to draw us together in ways that we could not have imagined weeks ago. As the Holy Spirit blew in to expand the minds and hearts of those who witnessed that first day of Pentecost, so too is the Holy Spirit blowing amongst us to expand our image of who we are. We are so much more than our membership list. For we, the new we, are becoming a community that is expanding beyond this building, beyond this town, beyond this state.
One of the shakeups, as I think about them, has been surrounding the importance society places on various vocations. We've really seen the lifting up of a variety of folks. I think I've always appreciated delivery folks, but when I was home with pneumonia recently, I was so grateful to have someone deliver groceries to my home. And I think we're thinking more about the people who are working so that we can go get groceries if we're able and check out, the folks who are cleaning at hospitals, the kind of folks we often overlook and undervalue. And I think lots of people are getting a new insight into the role of teachers as they're trying to help their kids along at home. As we've said, these shakeups are not always good things, and I'm not suggesting that the Holy Spirit sends my idea of earthquakes or diseases to shake us up. Yet the Spirit seems to always move into the chaos and show us new ways of seeing things and to encourage us to try something new, to get us out of our comfortable ruts and lead us into better paths. I mean, I just think, looking at my friends on Facebook, they're all trying more new things than they normally do. And they're up to more creative activities, I think. And the wonders of this particular spring seem to really be in sharper focus and are receiving more than average praise and appreciation and photos on Facebook and other social media places.
Worship face-to-face and in the building is what many of us cherish, and we are the ones who miss it deeply. But through all of this, as the Holy Spirit has blowing in us and amongst us, that same Holy Spirit has been opening our eyes and reminding us that a variety of worship is not just about changing the worship styles or moving outdoors. For some people, the abundance of online worship options is a dream come true. We've all gotten a taste of worshiping when we want and wearing whatever clothes we want with our mug of coffee or tea in hand. Some of us, yes, are eager to return to normal, and some of us are thoroughly loving the new routine. So who are we to say that worship can only be in the building or at a specific time or on a certain day of the week? It caught my attention when someone praised me for the worship video. This was many weeks ago, and so wait a minute, I thought. That wasn't worship. That was midweek devotions. But then I considered that the midweek devotional video included a song and a Bible reading with reflections and a prayer. So, yes, that does qualify as worship. Never mind that it was well under 10 minutes. After all, isn't worship about inviting people in to be nourished and fed so that they can grow in faith and be sustained for their daily lives? Seems to me that can happen in most any amount of focused time. Maybe worship can be well less than an hour or more than an hour or most any amount of quality time. Maybe worship does not have to be one size fits all. And of course, church is about so much more than worship. More than ever before during this pandemic, the Holy Spirit is leading us to recognize that church is so much more than the building and what happens in it. The church is the people living out our daily lives, sharing God's love in our everyday words and in our everyday actions.
In the midst of this chaos, I have experienced the challenges of being church, but I have also witnessed how God's work continued through all of our hands in new ways. I have heard families talk about staying connected and even reconnecting with people. I have seen how adult children have spent more time with their parents via some kind of video app or by standing outside and talking to them through a window. I've seen how much the opportunities to meet up face-to-face have meant in the past, even if that understanding now comes with hindsight, since getting together physically isn't safe. At the regional food bank in Eau Claire called Feed My People, and at the food pantries they partner with in the communities of West Central Wisconsin, I have witnessed and worked with people who have found ways to serve their neighbors that they never would have considered in the past. This includes people who weren't able to do their regular jobs at all or had been cut back to fewer hours, but who nevertheless found that keeping busy packing up meals for families and children was an excellent way to spend their downtime. They were not sitting around whining or complaining, even though their work had been disrupted. They were following the call of God's Spirit and using their hands and time to serve their neighbors. What we have been living through the past couple of months and what we will be living with for the next several months presents challenges to the people of God. But it has also brought opportunities that people have recognized and taken advantage of. We know the church needs to always be reforming, always needs to be growing and changing as people grow and change. And the Holy Spirit has been among us during this time of physical separation, binding us together with strands of prayer and service for each other.
In the midst of all of the bad things that have been happening these past weeks, be sure to recognize the good things that are also happening. In the midst of the challenges and the new schedules, how has the Holy Spirit been using that open space to open our eyes and our ears and our hearts to new possibilities and new connections and new opportunities? Change is rarely easy. Change can leave us feeling really unsettled, and yet in the midst of that change, we are never alone. The Holy Spirit never stops blowing and blessing and pushing and prodding, because the Holy Spirit never stops leading us towards life together that is full and rich and deep and meaningful. Thanks be to God.
Now let us take time for a Sabbath moment, reflecting in silence and resting in God's word.
Hey, thanks for watching this video. Be sure to give us a like and even a comment. And please, please, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel.